and make your own language, make your own recipes, make your own version of it. What India asks of you is to be true to yourself, be generous of your heart, be visionary in your thinking, and be leaders who will do the correct thing for the world. That's it.
Please join me in welcoming both Suvir and Mehr.
Thank you for joining us, Suvir.
Thank you for being here.
Before we get started, I'm going to ask you what everyone's wondering. Who are you wearing? Because you look fantastic.
I'm wearing India. It's not who I'm wearing or who made it. Of course, it's Rohit Bal who made the outfit, and Amrapali for the jewels. But I decided to look like a peacock because that is what India is. In the darkest of times, India shines bright, India lives on, India sings, India dances, India rises. Because India remembers that we're all from the earth, there's one mother. Ek Omkar, as the Sikhs say, Advait, as the Hindus say, universal in English. So India remembers this, and it's the plurality of India I'm wearing. And this is what I do. The jewels are as old as history, as old as time, made from different regions of India. The paise, perhaps, they say that women used to wear them, men wore them first. But women were made to wear these so that their sound would tell the in-laws that the new bride who's coming to their home is walking around, be circumspect. So that's a legend, and they put women to wear these. But all this jewelry was first made for men. Women were the afterthought. That's India for you.
That's a really good analogy. I love what you said about India being like a peacock in the darkness. It's so true. So Indian cooking is a reflection of family and culture. What are some of your earliest food memories?
So, the song I've been humming since yesterday, my life is about songs that I've hummed, is Savan Ki Aayi Bahar, which says that the monsoon brings spring. Look at the way Indians weave words together, create richness where poverty is the reality. Food, for me, is about taking the darkest moments and bringing the most brilliant light into your life. Comfort. For me, comfort comes from dal chawal sabzi, rice with some lentils and some vegetables. It comes from a pasta I make from all the veggies I get in India seasonally. It comes from a bowl of noodles or a cow soy. It comes from French fries with chaat masala and ketchup. It comes from looking at Tikkuji who's sitting here. When he eats anything and opens his big mouth and bigger smile, magic happens in my heart. So eat whatever you're used to eating. But what I'll tell people is, I try to eat as connected to where I am as possible. When I was in India, I grew up in a Hindu vegetarian home, where I learned how to speak Urdu through a Maulvi Sahib who came to teach me the Qaeda and with a Kalam in Roshni, with a colloquial in English. And why? Because my grandmother wanted me to understand Indian tradition. So this vegetarian Hindu boy was learning from a Muslim man how to read Urdu, the language of the courts of India. That is India. I was eating from the imagery. I was eating food for the soul. I was being connected to a planet that was very big through these little acts of generosity of self, of thinking bigger than yourself. And that's Mother India, that's the India where I grew up, where food was as much a physical act of eating as it was about connecting to the planet at large. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One world, one family, one village.
Awesome. And was there a specific moment where you realized that food would become your life's work?
At the age of 3, something within me told me I was a shame, I was a dark spot, I was an aberration, that I should have been killed. And I'm 3. I used to cry every night. And at 5, I found expression for this feeling. It was the act I saw one day, a man and a woman kissing, and I understood what they were doing. But I didn't again have words for it, but I wanted to do it to another man. And that in my head rattled me. That I'm even worse, I should be killed instantly. And what did I do? I escaped to the kitchen. I offended somebody, I guess. I escaped into the kitchen. And the kitchen was my haven. In the kitchen, nobody judged me. Our family is Brahmin chef who cooked incredible vegetarian foods. He brought me in. My mother, my brother, my sister were not allowed into the kitchen. You had to shower, be without leather. All the rules of good Vaishnav cooking were adhered to. But this kid who was barely 5, I was allowed to give him full access. At his side, Mehr, I learned how to chop, how to look at a vegetable for ripeness. I was told about looking at food as a vessel of knowledge. So he would tell me the story behind each recipe that he learned from my grandmother. Whether it was a family recipe, a regional recipe, a traditional recipe, a recipe connected to a tyohar, a festival, every recipe in his repertoire, which was endless, had a story, a connection, a GPS location. And he taught me that, but not to be didactic about it. He said, Bhaiya, Dadi ko unki mummy ne sikhaya tha, that my grandmother learned it from her mother. And he said, but Dadi also told me to become practical in the Delhi kitchen. They had done it in Kurwar, which was near Lucknow. But my grandmother had told him, adapt to the modern times. That was the essential key he taught me. So I never knew I would be a cook. This boy who learned from Panditji moved on to JJ School of Art in Bombay. And in 1991, Bombay was Bombay. It was a city that didn't have as incredible a cuisine that I'd grown up eating in Delhi. So I cooked. Nana Chudasama was the mayor. Somehow a friend of mine who'd seen me looking not quite like this, but somewhat similar, found me on the street, said, who are you? I said, I'm Suvir Saran. She wrote a profile of mine for the Times of India, and this woman then became the editor of Elle magazine in India. She took me to Nana Chudasama's home. I cooked a meal there. So all my life, accidents would make me cook for people. And Nana Chudasama and his guests, the mayor of Bombay and his guests, all of a sudden were eating Indian food like they'd never eaten, and they were thrilled. Then this boy at 20 arrives in New York City to further his education in graphic design, art history, and photography at School of Visual Arts. I was in a student budget. I came with just so much money that could buy me a ticket and first month's rent. I took student loan and more student loan to pay the student loan for school fees, for my home, and to dream a little. Every night I would cook after having worked full time, gone to school full time, and I would come home by 8 or so, and by 10 I would have dinner ready for 6, 10, 15, 100 people. And some of the people coming in are some of the most popular names of Hollywood. They would show up. Word spread, a young kid cooks some of the finest food in New York City, not Indian. They would show up. So now I had the burden of not just cooking, but repeating and working hard and to inspire. So again, school, I would wake up at 6 to take food to my classmates or work wherever I was going, come back and cook for the evening meal. I would sleep 2 to 3 hours, and those 2 to 3 hours were me thinking what am I going to do to pay the next month's rent. And I lived like this till one day a man came and gave me money and said, I'm opening a restaurant for you. What do you want to call it? We called it Devi. The food critic of New York magazine, Gail Green, for 44 plus years, gave me that name. She said, Suvir, when you speak, when you give credit, all you talk about is Mother India. What do you call the mother goddess? I said, Devi. She said, Devi it is. So these were different times. In 2004, we didn't have to worry about what the name should be. We called Devi, and the second dish on the menu was veal brain bruschetta. So what were the forbidden meat? We were serving the forbidden meat at my restaurant, Devi, and people were cherishing it. So that restaurant was, again, came out of the blue. Devi won the first Michelin star that any non-Northern European restaurant in North America got when the guidebook first came. And that's what made me into a chef. I didn't train for it. I didn't dream of it. I didn't think I had it in me. But I, as a man who was marginalized, who was afraid to be himself, who didn't have a voice, who didn't know what he was, who struggled to respect his own self, the kitchen, food, feeding others made me think for a minute or 2 or maybe 4 hours that I was okay, that I had a place in this earth. So food gave me that connection, and the smiles in others' faces told me when they're not calling me expletives and they're liking my food, I still have a place in this planet.
Wonderfully said. I wonder what the 3-year-old version of you would say, to the fact that not only did you reach these incredible new heights, but you also opened doors to so many others, which I think is really commendable. So you've carved quite a niche for yourself, as a restaurateur, a Michelin-starred chef, an entrepreneur, and a best-selling author. What challenges did you face while working as an Indian chef in New York, translating Indian flavors to a global audience, and how did you navigate these challenges?
So it's a loaded question. If I said what I did, Harvard may have to shutter its doors. I may never see tomorrow, and there'll be political embargo on many of us. America of the 1990s, from 93 till, I would say 2020, was a very different place. I spoke with a lisp. I look like a Southern Italian. I look like a Sabra, a New York Jew, Israeli Jew. So I was everything they were hated or considered foreign. When I opened my mouth, they identified Indian. Then when I spoke with the lisp, I was many other things. So I was very inconvenient in many ways. For America of 1993, 95, 98, 2000, 2005, I was always the other. And the challenges were not the Americans. They looked at me as the other. Indians are the most important challenge in my life, even today, to my world as a chef. Indians are they're not proud of their own food. We are not proud of our ghar ka khana. When we want to go out and eat, what do we want to eat? Butter chicken, dal makhani. That's the length and breadth of our imagination. The world chases real food. We are chasing crap that's loaded with bad calories, if not the worst calories you can get on the planet. And that's what we consider fine dining. All of Indian restaurants are serving a cuisine that all of India should be ashamed of. But these are the restaurants getting agency. They're the only restaurants making it. We are that numb in our brains that we don't think about what we put on our mouths. We are mindless people that are the children of the most mindful nation on the planet. And yet we eat the worst food. And yet I advise this lady, Kathy McManus, from Brigham and Women Hospital in Boston, the teaching arm of Harvard Medical School, about Indian food. Harvard wants our knowledge. We put it in the backdrop. We are eating crap. That is the biggest challenge. When you have a nation of 1.5 billion people that doesn't have respect for their own cuisine, you are, as a restaurateur, chef, are forced to be dumbing down your creativity. And if you dare, you're failed. You then only have 50 people who come and eat at your restaurant. So Indians need to wake up. You know, when we were a colony, we were colonized. It's okay. You had to, out of fear, you did things. The colonizers have left. We are free. Soon the third largest economy. But in our minds, we are not free. We are caged. What do we call this? I don't do this. This is not who I am. I'm not a cut-put, please. I'm not a puppet. But I want this to tell you, make a statement. We are caged. We call our jewelry ethnic jewelry. We call our clothes ethnic fashion in our own country. Colonizers aren't calling our food and jewelry and our fashion ethnic. We are allowing them to call it. We have to take back that narrative. We have to be proud again. We have to eat dal chawal sabzi. We also have to make modern versions of it. We have to celebrate those dishes. The sabzis of India. We have 1 million vegetables that the world doesn't know about. When you eat them, you get flavor, texture, color, nuance, good health, high fiber, and good movement the next morning that you don't need any aid to release. That is India for you. We need to own, celebrate, and innovate with that India. And that's what we need to do.
That's a great point. You know, I can't believe that no one has a documented catalog of all the sabzis of India, because it's impossible, right? Because every house, every village has their own renditions.
No, because every house, every village has their own version of butter chicken, dal makhani, biryani. So the foods that guarantee you're in a hospital at 35 are the ones we are celebrating.
Right.
And the colonizers and their minions. The colonizers left, but the multinationals that share the colonizers' mindset and heartbeat are still there. Those corporations that want you in the hospital are swaying, dancing to the tune of Indian Bhangra as you eat crap and get to the hospital. So we really have to take our own lives in our own hands, get into your homes. At Harvard, this conference we taught healthy kitchens, healthy lives. I always in my session said, families that eat together, dine together will be healthier together. Because we have to eat the old Indian way. The French do it, the Greek do it, the Italians do it, and they're healthy. We don't, and we are paying a price for it. So India is the biggest enemy of Indian food. America never challenged me. My own people did. So what are you making? Bharwa karela? And then there would be an Indian born in America who would eat the bharwa karela and say, Chef, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. But the ones who are not proud are the parents who are telling their child, they need this, acha nahi hai. Dadi banati hai. What's the problem if your grandmother makes it? That should be your joy. The Italians call it cucina povera, food of poverty. And we are paying 200 euros for it per person. So allow Indian grandmothers to sing and dance at your table. They should have that place of pride.
You've championed sustainability since your masala farm days. Why do you think the farm-to-table concept is such a great match for Indian cuisine, and how can more chefs incorporate it in their cooking?
Again, dangerous words and a lot of baloney. And America has been joined by India in creating fable and fantasy into people's perceived reality. So we have America, a nation that really pulled wool over its own people's eyes and fed them poison and they happily ate it. India is doing the same. Farm to table is nobody's reality. We are all striving to get there. Journalists love getting, at 21 I was the youngest writer on the Master of Food Arts magazine. And on my 30th birthday, the publisher of the magazine got me a happy 40th birthday cake. Not knowing that I was 21 when I was writing his articles. So food, farm to table is a myth. If you're a farmer, you die with poverty. America and the world doesn't support real honest farmers. Industrial farming is not farming. So farm to table should be more farm to fable. How many stories are we making? And who's making money and laughing because the farmer is getting nothing? I lived in an 80-acre farm in upstate New York in a town called Hebron. Idyllic life. But there were only two enemies to my life there, which was really amazing. One were the everyday Americans who lived around me, who thought I was the F word for being a gay man, who thought I was a T word for being an Arab. They thought of me as the other. They had never been given respect, time, opportunity by their own nation. I lived in a poor farming community. My neighbors were not bad people. Their lives had been not touched by modernity. They lived in America of 1800s. They didn't have it, they called it interweb. So here I was the person speaking with an accent, but they didn't know interweb. So when I got Wi-Fi in my home through satellite, I was the only rich man of the county that can afford it. They would come in cars and use our high-speed internet access. Those kids didn't have a library to go to. They didn't have a physics teacher in the school. The teachers were upset at me that on career day, I told those kids they could be scientists and many other things. She said, Suvir chef, there can only be 3 things in our community. I said, what are they? Truck driver, bank teller, and nothing. So this is the education my neighbors were getting. One day I asked Charlie about a certain family I hadn't seen for a while. He said they gassed themselves to death 3 months ago. I said, what? They hadn't paid their rent to the landlord for many months. They gassed, the family of 9 was gassed to death. This is the reality of America we don't want to talk about. And so farm-to-table living is very difficult, whether it's in America or in India or anywhere in the world. When a cauliflower that you pluck from the earth and put in a shelf costs $6, you think it's expensive. Then you go to the frozen section, that cauliflower plucked from the earth, taken into a factory, chopped, washed, packaged in cardboard, then with silver foil, then with colored stamping, put in a truck, shipped across the world for 99 cents. You do the math. What is farm to table? Somewhere we've maimed ourselves into believing what we do. We don't look at labels, we don't look at reality, we don't do this thinking. That a cauliflower fresh from the earth, not touched by any machinery, is $6. But a package of chopped cauliflower with a gazillion horrible things in it, that's been traveled all over the planet, costs 99 cents. Why? You all are smart minds. Think about that. So farm-to-table living is not, there's no paradise. Yes, Indian food like all other foods. If you give us local vegetables, Indians celebrate veggies, are aromatics. There are spices, there are herbs, there are herbs, there are aromatics, there are pastes, there are preserves, there are pickles that India has. And when you marry them to these vegetables, when you bring your imagination to the kitchen, magic happens. India is no stranger to farm-to-table living, but there's all these minds you have to think, what are we doing to bring that India, bring that world to a farm, to a table, where truth is the engine driving us, not just a lot of baloney. So I think that's the bigger question to ask. India, of course, will give you a million recipes.
For sure. You've often written that you consider food a form of healing. How has food transformed your life, and how can home cooks and chefs foster a healthy connection between food and well-being?
So if you look at me, I'm very chunky. That's why I wear all these loose clothes. I'm a heavy-set man, and I'm proud of it. I can't change this. Do I have a battle with weight? No, but I don't challenge myself enough to maybe be in better shape. My friend Kathy jogs 15 miles a day, and she's never looked any different from what she's always fabulous looking. She's very disciplined. Just a few months ago, I went to I did my full blood work, and Kathy will be happy to hear this. The cardiologist who's been seeing me for the last 8 years looked at my report and she said, again, you defy any logic. And she said, look at your blood. Everything was perfect. My HbA1c was 4.8. And my cholesterol, blood sugar, everything incredible. She said, what do you eat? I said, mostly plants and vegetables. I don't follow fads and trends in diets. I eat what's available in the market that I can see as real food. And I often cook it, or I go to homes and I know people are cooking it. When I go out to eat with friends and family, that day I don't eat too much, I'll eat the dessert. But they think, well, I eat good food. Joyce and I have a friend, Joyce Goldstein, she's a chef in her 80s. She said to me, I invest in my own food because it's an investment in good health. So I eat like that. It's about, I think, make food a way of not just eating, but living your life. For me, when I cooked with friends, I made somebody wash a vegetable, another laid the table, a third would bring out the cutlery, and they say, oh my God, Suvir, where did you get this? Oh, I bought this from the Chippendale store in France. Everything has stories. So you teach your kids, your family, your neighbors, your friends to make the act of cooking a community aspect. Nobody judges you. And when you cook the food yourselves, your health, your well-being all comes to the table because you won't do anything wrong. If you make a mistake, the 8 friends who cooked together, who sat at the table together, had rich conversations, nobody will go backbiting the other. That meal is a winner because you did the act of cooking, the washing, the conversations. They're healing, 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 and they guarantee well-being. There's a big difference between being muscular and being a person of well-sound body. There are bodybuilders who, Jim Fix was this American jogger who died very young. His wife was one of my students, and she said to me his arteries were clogged. My calcium score was 0.8, and I'm 52. So it's very rare that somebody had that little child's heart. But I eat mostly plant-based foods, and I cheat with, she sees me eat a whole pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. When nobody's watching, once in a while I do that. So well-being, it should mostly be good, sometimes be naughty, and acknowledge naughtiness with pride.
For centuries, Ayurveda has linked nourishment and spiritual harmony. How can chefs today integrate Ayurvedic principles into their cooking in a way that feels both authentic and appeals to modern diners?
So Ayurveda, like the Vedas, was a treatise on living mindfully. There's nobody checking if the Ayurveda, what we are told is Ayurveda, is really what was written. It's all, Ayurveda is passed on tradition. Tenet of Ayurveda, the basics are, eat smart, eat local, eat plant-based again, eat sensibly, what grows around you. The Italian says what grows together, goes together. That's Ayurveda. The ghee, somebody told me, oh, it's so lovely. I love ghee. Ghee is not in Ayurveda. Nobody was showering in ghee in old days. That one cow had to feed an army of thousands. So ghee was tadka. That's why we did the tadka. That 1 teaspoon of ghee fed a family of 8 at lunch. How much ghee are you taking? Drops of it. That is Ayurveda. A sensible, practical guide to living smartly. You are what you eat, be careful. So when you put all these fats at room temperature, ghee, coconut oil become jelly. They're solid. Your arteries are being clogged by them. Think of that. Forget what the Babas tell you. The Babas were not from the gods. They're human. So reality is Ayurveda tells you to be practical, be smart, and most of all, cook. Ayurveda not to be just talked in platitudes. Put it into practice. Cook every day, eat smartly, as much fresh food as you can, whole foods, that is Ayurveda.
You know, but at the same time, we're seeing the West co-opt a lot of Ayurvedic principles and teachings, whether it's a golden milk turmeric latte, or, you know, makhana, or makhana, which is puffed lotus seeds,
Makhana is crap.
being branded as healthy popcorn. What are your thoughts on this?
So, you know, there's something wrong with us humans, that every year, 2 years, 5-year cycle, one commodity board, one angel investor, and their PR team succeeds in making us dumber than we were 5 years ago. So it's a cycle. Kathy told me very smartly a few years ago, a friend of mine bought like large bags of vegetable chips. She says, same crap, potato chips, vegetable. Hello, eat the vegetable. By the time you process it, this thin crisp, there's nothing vegetable left about it. So be sensitive. All these things, they are indulgences, and you should have them. I tell people not to. I have that. The other day I was in some hotel in New York, in a hotel room. I saw Lay's with Lay's salt and pepper. I got it. Because the Indian ketchup chips aren't good. The Lay's in America are better than the Lay's in India. I got it, I ate it without any shame. Have that moment. But if you have that moment non-stop, like the Americans sitting in front of a TV in a home eating every day, no, don't make that. That's mindless. But you have to indulge to be good citizens every day. Sometimes you have to be naughty. Acknowledge that I'm, for being so good for so long, I'm indulging in a little naughtiness, and that's it. But these lotus chips and all, they're dangerous. Eat a French fry. Don't go for these lotus chips thinking they're better for you. They're not. Eat the real deal.
Okay, just shifting gears here. Indian cuisine is both rich in history and incredibly diverse. As a chef, how do you balance honoring tradition and innovation in your dishes?
So, the butter chicken, the bane of my existence. When I opened Devi, we were the first restaurant in the world that dared to dream that Indian food could have a aha moment where degustation menu, before Indians or non-Indians knew the word degustation in America, I put it on the plate, not other American chefs. An Indian chef put degustation as the name of his menu. So, you can do it. What we did was, Gail Green, the food critic of New York Magazine, said to eat Saran's food is taking a train ride across India, where he cherry picks dishes from all over India, composes them onto a plate, with 5-7 dishes come together to create one. Wasn't that difficult? I took barra chops, lamb chops from Kareem, the recipe based on the Kareem recipe. I took pear chutney from Himachal. I took aloo chokha from Odisha, Bihar, and Bengal. And I took a tomato chutney from Hyderabad. And I put them together. New York Times. I think if you Google my name and lamb chops, again and again, Jean-Georges and Suvir were cooking the best lamb chops in America. We didn't do anything new. We took all these very popular dishes of different regions of India, put them into a plate. I created a dish that looked like Manhattan. The bone of the chops going high, the potatoes at the bottom. We made the plate look pretty. I didn't change anything. Innovation is about thinking smart. How do we bring the same foods of the Indian homes, make them look sexy, clothe them like I am? We're not changing the format. I'm not sexy inside, but the plate looks very sexy. Once you eat with your eyes before you eat with your could you find it funny? You eat with your eyes before you eat with your mouth. So make it look good. That's the basic. But I also feel beyond that, I was invited to the Culinary Institute of America after somebody ate my food. I had changed the language of the English. And my book changed that for the world of writing. But my food wasn't a Birbal ke Nargisi, Ammi ke Jahanara. I just said, open fire lamb chops. I called something creamy ginger kebabs. We didn't go into Sanskrit, in Hindi, Arabic names for our food, English names. That was the language of communication. It worked. When I wrote Indian Home Cooking, which has sold over 250,000 copies, that book gave stories. Each recipe came with a story. Then the very well-written recipe that was tested by people other than me 5 times. And I paid 50%, I'm still paying 50% of every penny I earned from that book to Stephanie Reines, my co-writer, the toughest, most expensive collaborator to have for a book. I gave it to her and got multiple money back from it. She wrote tested the recipes, and we gave alternatives. The women she talked about and has worked with were writing recipe books that said, if you don't have coriander, substitute with parsley. I substituted, I want to throw it on the wall and just commit suicide. So these kinds of books from India were failing everybody. I didn't want to write a cookbook. I was ashamed of the Indians writing cookbooks, that kind of food even got oxygen, and journalists are still giving it oxygen. They haven't bothered opening the pages. I cooked Indian food from all these books. I was ashamed that the recipe didn't match the photograph of that damn recipe, and I've spent hours cooking it, but the photograph doesn't match. So one day I told somebody I want to write a book. That woman was a literary agent whose best friend, Barbara Walters' daughter, Carol Goober, eated my food. She said, I'm taking it to the best agent in America. Angela took me on as an author. We did this book. Pam Krause, the editor-in-chief of Clarkson Potter, who had built some of the most important authors of America, Mario Batali, Ming Tsai, Martha Stewart, Rachel Ray, took me on as a 6th author. She said, we'll bridge the world between India of the women who wrote terrible cookbooks, but we loved them because there was no other option, to an India where we want to achieve. And I think you'll do it for us. I said, why me? She said, you speak with clarity and honesty, but in English we can understand. You've told me that recipe with parsley is useless. I'm telling you I hated it. So, you have to be one with the times. And that is what the book and my cooking did. We made it approachable. And food, authenticity is overrated. If for authenticity you're living in 16th century and choking yourself to death with the fumes of the cooking techniques of that day, today you're not doing anybody a favor. So be smart, think of the past, take learnings from it, be present in this present here and now, thinking about sustainable practices that will make your family and your grandchildren and theirs live and eat these recipes tomorrow. That's the approach to smart cooking, and I think that's what the recipes that Devi and my cookbook brought forward.
Great. As someone who's traversed both these worlds, in your experience, how does food shape Indian identity within India and also within the diaspora?
Food is one of the most guttural reactions we can get for ourselves when we indulge in it. But I think India has to grow up. We are a nation that was colonized in such a brutal way for so long that we've somewhere bashing ourselves is the best thing we can do to feel comfort. So now let's go back. I think I can't undo what we are, but I can urge you to become Indians of a free nation that's fast and growing and that beseeches you to not be the Indians that are popular on television. Don't copy anybody of India today. In your head, imagine India. When I was a young child, I wasn't told by anybody in politics or in bureaucracy about what India was. I read it in the songs, the books that celebrated an India that doesn't exist anywhere today. But my fantasy India is the India for which I work hard and I am a slave at the table. You know what those songs were? Tum Ram kaho ve Rahim kahe, dono ki garaz Allah se. क्यों लड़ता है मूरख बंदे ये तेरी खाम ख्याली है पेड़ की जड़ तो एक वही हर मजहब एक एक डाली. That you say Ram, they say Rahim, you're both talking about the one God. Why do you fight, O mortal man? The tree has one root. The religions are the different branches. We're all going to one place in different journeys, different cars, different highways, that same spot. When you think of India as this magical place where plurality, where color, Mark Twain was shocked. He called us heathen. When Twain left the shores of America to get to India on that journey across the equator, he didn't go with any noble intention of loving India. He'd already called us heathen. But then he arrived in India and he saw this. I'm sure he wanted to become a drag queen like me. But Mark Twain used the word mother of all civilization, the birthplace of human speech, the cradle of all humanity, the most colorful thing he'd ever seen. That is India. Don't box India into anybody's imagination of what they think it is. India belongs to all. And that is the India we need to focus on and make your own language, make your own recipes, make your own version of it. What India asks of you is to be true to yourself, be generous of your heart, be visionary in your thinking, and be leaders who will do the correct thing for tomorrow. That's it.
Beautifully said. I think we're finally only now just starting to unshackle ourselves from the confines of this butter chicken, butter naan paradox. It's just only happening now. And Indian food is arguably more popular than ever in the US before. Why do you think it took so long for our cuisine to get its due?
I don't think we've got an due. So let's do our homework again. What is popular is curry houses. The word that is used when they call our Indian food ethnic, popular, who's eating? At 6 rupees, $6, $11, all you can eat, buffet, drunken night, morning after. Are you mad? That doesn't make up. We are the cheap and cheery food that when you want to be mindless, that we don't have money, that when we want to have 10 guests entertained we don't really love, you go to that cheap Indian restaurant. So we want to be the place where they go to spend $200 on the food and then also spend $100 more on the drinks. When we get them, we got it. Till then we've never become America's #1 cuisine. French has happened, Thai happened, Vietnamese happened. Every other cuisine has had their moment of being the newest one. We are always the next. In 1993, when I started cooking, India was the next trend. I never got that. When Devi opened, we got the first Michelin star, we got celebrated. But Suvir, all those other those curries, I love them, they're cheap and cheery. We've remained cheap and cheery. There are many more cheap and cheery restaurants, but that doesn't change the fact that they call us cheap and cheery. So cheap is a very dirty word. It tells you who you are. So we need to grow up as Indians and read between the lines. 10 minutes more left.
What do you think has been the key to your success in an ever-evolving industry, and what advice do you have for young chefs and aspiring restaurateurs?
I don't think I've been successful, that's the truth of it. I'm the inconvenient truth teller. I never go to chefs' conferences with those where they celebrate chefs. I've only gone to Harvard, Culinary Institute conferences where we celebrate thinking. So when somebody invites me to a chef-driven conference, I know some commodity board, some agenda is driving it, I have no interest. Because I want real life people to want me, and I love life. I don't need accolades from my peers. I need to be bullied, I need to hear horrible things said about my food, I need to hear the whispers that are happening behind me. Those happen in places where they don't know me. And that's where I've never heard I'm successful, because that's where I live. And those places make me work hard, because in those places, Suvir has a lot of growing up to do, has a lot of angst to bring out of his mind and heart and talent, and bring it to the plate. So I'm still growing up. I now have a few hundred employees, chefs that I mentor every day. I have at least a few dozen mentees that I give my every awake hour to help them become richer, better versions of themselves, because I had access, I had agency, I had parents who allowed me to dream, I had Americans who opened doors for me, and then other Americans who opened more doors. I was a lucky man. So for me, my life's calling is that I need to make noise, so that I make noise for those who can't speak. I think for those who are maimed because they're bullied into submission. I'm their storyteller, their audible voice, and I have a lot to do, because there are too many of us still being marginalized in this world, and I hope one day I'll grow up and do something for them.
Thank you so much. I'm sure everybody has a higher appreciation for Indian food now and is craving some of their most favorite dishes. So thank you. They mentioned we have 10 minutes left, so I might open it up to the audience for questions. Yes, in the white.
Hi, I'm Sneha, and I'm so elated to meet you. And I would just like to say, as a student myself, what you said about having stories when you're cooking together. Mostly we cook with friends now, and we are sharing our experiences with them and tasting stories.
And never stop doing it. Thank you for doing that.
So my question to you is that you have been part of so many successful restaurants. So how do you think AI and automation will transform this industry, and what's your view of that?
I think I can tell you how it's already doing it. I've worked with a chef who couldn't write or speak for I mentored them in every way possible, but they would only become a tota, a parrot. What I said, they could repeat very well. But when they had to think, they couldn't say anything intelligent. One day I get a menu beautifully written. I said, nobody in your orbit other than me could have written this. How did you get this to happen? AI? He said, yes, chef. But I said, these are not my words, but these are perfect, grammatically correct. I said, okay, good, go. So AI is there. We are the inconvenient people. AI will live with or without us. So let's all put our heart and soul into it. Where will it take us? I don't know. But robotic technology, AI, and life's need to live with itself are going to drive us to change. We need to be one with change, one with life, and not resist. That's all I can say.
Yes, in the Gurun.
Sorry. So Indian food is widely loved across the world, but we rarely see any Indian chain that's able to make it global on a large scale. Something like a Taco Bell or a McDonald's or Domino's. Obviously, it's fast food, but still there's no Indian substitute for any of these that is around the world. So how could that be? How would that be opportunity in that space?
There's one of the world's greatest corporations. I worked with, consulted with, I can't name them because it's too big. Hopefully they won't understand I'm talking about them. Did a study on the employee behavior when they ate different foods. When you eat Indian food that all of you are so proud of, butter chicken, dal makhani, and 100 versions of it, employees would come to the desk and fall asleep. So they were having a glycemic fall. I don't need to say more about bashing my own country's food. That's the dark spot of America. Why would anybody invest in that crap? So we need to make dal, chawal, sabzi, that light food of India become mainstay. 1 million people will then innovate to make it popular. Because when you eat that on the desk, you can't. And other part, I had a fancy billionaire investor, the youngest Indian billionaire, paying $1 million rent for my restaurant in San Francisco for 18 months. our dream crashed when the building was deemed unfit to open a restaurant. That man came to me with then a huge investment of millions of dollars because he said, as an Indian, I'm ashamed of my own food. I said, why? He said, after eating Indian food, the next 3 days my hands smell of the gravy, the curry. It's right, even mine did. So those overcooked sauces, cooked for days, stored for months, they've given Indian food such a bad rep that nobody wants to make a chain out of it, other than an Indian. So only so many Indians are anywhere that eat that crap. So we need to innovate, and McDonald's and Taco Bell are horrible places. Please don't eat there either. But we need to innovate better for the entire planet with all cuisines to make food that can give price points that McDonald's does and still give people real food. That should be our aim. And whether it's Indian or many other cuisines, we should welcome them all. 5 minutes left.
Yes, we'll take one more question. Sorry.
No, we can take two, because I'll have one more.
Hi. So, as you said that India has a lot to be proud of, I've also heard recently someone say that had India stopped exporting spices, the whole world wouldn't really have good food. Saying that, how did you navigate your way by being flexible to the tastes or the flavors that the Americans accept against the flavorful dishes that India puts to the table?
So she was sleeping during my entire conversation. Americans were not my challenge. Americans accepted everything. Indians are the palate challenge. America accepts every bit of celebration of flavors. They don't ghettoize us. Indians want butter chicken and 100 versions of it, and they'll fight about which version is better. Americans were hungry for bold flavors of India. Indians were the challenge. I didn't have to do anything for the American market. It's Indians that still don't eat good Indian food. So let's not demonize the Americans. Non-Indians love our food. We have to love our food. We have to eat it for the gazillion recipes we have in our store. And what you said about all the spices, excuse me, the world still doesn't use spices. India did a lot, but spices were not put into foods. In North Dakota, what's the spiciest thing they put in their dishes? Do you know what it is? Black pepper. So spices did not change much. And yet they were taken everywhere, not for eating, for women to put in their lingerie closets for a hint of scent, and for balms and all that they made for healing the body. But in food, spices have struggled. People loved it, but the rich kept it. If you read medieval history, spices were for the royals, and the rest of them were used for medicine. So Indians are our biggest challenge, not the others.
Yes. Yes, please.
Thank you. As Mehr said, thank you for giving us a very fresh perspective on how to celebrate the beautiful Indian food from a country where the food changes every 20 kilometers. I have always been looking upon innovators like Zorawar Kalra's Dal Chawal Arancini, as you told, to celebrate Dal Chawal, and foodpreneur working in this industry in the US and wanting to go back to India now and develop something innovative in this.
We had developed it in Devi in 2001. Arancini.
Growing up in India. And now I want to go back to India and probably bring this revolution about celebrating Indian food in India itself. How do you think are some steps that we can think of in controlling this narrative so that people feel proud about eating their food, apart from getting it in their daily diets as well? From a marketing or a global perspective in India itself first.
Indians actually, really, we are so smart and we are so dim. There's a food journalist, Sadaf Hussain, Tiku Saab pay attention. Sadaf Hussain is this master chef competitor. He once did Google research on me. And I get a call at Suvir Saran. I said, what happened? He said, chef, you were making bhel puri and selling it in America in 1999? I said, yes. I didn't know what. He said, well, Zorawar put it on the menu in 2009. I said, that's Zorawar. So we've done it. We need to own our narrative. Indians have been innovating forever. You go to Uganda, the food of Indian diaspora there is so incredible. So we need to, stories, honesty, integrity are key. Indians are very good at marketing. Marketing only takes you so far. So Zorawar is doing a very good job, but now do something new. Zorawar is recycling what was done in London and New York by chefs with imagination, but he's stuck there. You can only reinvent them 20 times. A chef is not about reinventing old dishes. A chef should go to work to create new versions of old favorites, entirely new dish. So Zorawar has given us agency and I love him. and he's doing a brilliant job. But Zorawar is one. We need to have a gazillion Zorawars doing innovation. Innovation is not butter chicken and 100. You know that an Indian restaurant by that all of you know, I spare them me naming them, puts butter chicken in a flower pot, in a earthen pot, and they think it's at the highest rated Indian restaurant. That is cheating. Imagineer, reinvent, and create something magical. That's the way to go. And there was a question from Kashmir. Where's my Kashmiri lady? Ask your question.
Hello sir. So first of all, I have to say that आप बनाते पकवान हो, but you look nothing less than a king right now. So let's start with that. But regardless, so I have grown up. So my mom is from Jammu and Kashmir, and I was born there, and we have grown up eating Wazwan all the time. But somehow, even in Delhi, even though I was raised in Delhi, they're not. This is the capital of India, by the way, and there are not many options there to eat Wazwan food. So Boston to chhodi do. If I want to eat Wazwan here, the cheapest option is for me to book a ticket and go back. But so why is that a thing? Why some cuisines are just not as commercialized in India? When I think Wazwan is something that can cater to all the masses, and it's not a very acquired taste. I think it's something that's very likable by most people who even have it for the first time.
So Wazwan, does anybody know what Wazwan is? Wazwan are these Kashmiri cadre of chefs. Wazwan is a way of life. It is a food festival. It is a spectacle. It is a reawakening. It is a second coming of Christ. That's what Wazwan. So with Wazwan, it's not about you cooking a dish. It's about one butcher just taking the meat and making it correctly chopped for every kebab that's coming out. Hand spun, hand chopped, knife chopped, coarse knife chopped. The intricacies of a Wazwan meal are too much for anybody to understand, let alone a lazy human being who just wants a trend. Wazwan is an investment in waking up. Wazwan is an investment in being mindful and paying for something that takes a lot of time. Wazwan is the sister of Indian home cooking. That's the meat version of it. The vegetarian foods of Indian homes are the vegetarian version of a Wazwan, where cooks, brothers, sisters, whoever's cooking, spend hours for the pleasure that people finish in 1 hour. A Wazwan is the most difficult meal to make, because that's the cutting of the kebab. It's a life journey on how to learn to butcher. So thank you for being from Kashmir, the forgotten land of the world, like Palestine. And your food is amazing, and we all should celebrate the Wazwan. The food is incredible. Thank you so much.